So I've had the Tab S6 for a little over 24 hours now. I've customized it to my liking, and I've used it enough in order to, let's just say, for the lack of a better term, shout out to my sophomore world history teacher for teaching me this amazing term, thought vomit my initial impressions upon you here, in light of my full review coming up and my full comparison with the iPad Pro. But before we continue here, I'd really appreciate it if you'd leave a like on this video, comment if you have any questions, suggestions, or opinions, as the algorithm likes it and will help push my videos to more people. So without wasting any more time, let me share my initial impressions that I have with the Tab S6. So here we have my Tab S6. I got it in the gray color with 128 gigabytes of storage, and just right off the bat, this thing is built really well. I do appreciate the fact that they found their own way to have their pen, attached to the body, although I'll talk about this mechanism a little bit later. Yeah, it's solid, it's thin, the tab itself is made out of premium materials, and overall it's a pretty decent form factor, although I will tell you, I am not used to this form factor or this aspect ratio of display. This is 2560 by 1600, so it's a 16 by 10 display. I'm used to the 4x3 with the iPad, but still, it's usable in both portrait and landscape here. And as you can also see, my setup on the home screen is much different from the stock One UI. I cannot stand how much Samsung scales the apps up there. So I did end up installing Nova Launcher, and I scaled the apps down to a smaller size and also set up my widgets to take advantage of the screen. I'll make a whole separate video on how I set this up. If you'd like, leave me a comment. And to talk a little bit more about display, once again, this does have like a 2.5K resolution, a little bit more with the 1600 horizontal or vertical resolution, depending on how you pick this up. It's Super AMOLED, it's quite bright and colorful, contrasty, great for movie watching and media consumption overall. The stereo speaker setup is made by AKG, and it's very similar to that of the iPad Pros. You have 4 drivers on all corners, and they sound really good. I did enjoy listening to some Spotify music using this device. I'll quickly rattle off the specs here. Snapdragon 855 and up to 8 gigabytes of RAM. I have 6 in this model, as it's the baseline 128 gig one. The best way I can describe the experience is by saying this is like a big ass Samsung Galaxy S10. Obviously, One UI is different with tablet form, but I mean, it's the same specs, it's the same level of smoothness, One UI is One UI at the end of the day. I will say the tablet OS is not as well optimized as the phone OS, but it's still similar in regard to the smoothness and how quick apps open and such. And so far, I mean, for what it is, the experience has been great, especially with Nova Launcher. Apps open fairly quickly. I've had no problem opening apps and no performance issues. Like I've said in the past, One UI is not perfectly optimized, so this is definitely not the smoothest tablet experience I have ever experienced, but for the most part, I've enjoyed multitasking and, going through the app switcher and opening different apps. There's also a dark mode you can enable. But let's talk about the S Pen now. It attaches to the back of the tablet, and I gotta tell you, I was kind of disappointed about the materials used with this pen. It's plastic. It feels a lot cheaper than it looks, but it does attach fairly nicely, albeit not as magnetically satisfying as the Apple Pencil. I'll talk more about that in my full comparison with the iPad Pro, and I'm happy they have a designated place to put the stylus. I would rather have this than having to, pull it in and out of the tablet body itself. And also it's nice because when you set the tablet down on a flat surface, it's not going to rock or anything because the pen is in a great spot and it doesn't cause any imbalance. So far the writing experience is just fine. You have a fine point of input here with pressure sensitivity, so we can say, hi, my name is Noah, and you do get those cheesy, writing sounds that you also get with the Note 10. Using the pen in an app like Chrome is also convenient, as you can, highlight text. Why does it sound like I'm having a stroke? Using the pen in an app like Chrome is also really convenient. I love the fact that this, once again, is a fine point of input, which allows you to do things more easily, like, highlight text, for example. So we can, highlight this text and copy it over. So if you wanted to send a message to somebody or copy that into an email, it's made much easier with this stylus. The last thing I want to talk about is multitasking, which you can do with this device, and as you can see, I can drag an app over here and bring it into a pop-up window, so that will take a second, and then here we are with this. I can make it full screen, and then we can share or scale the apps whatever way we want. I can also bring another one in here. Let's try the actual internet browser that comes with One UI. You can have a window mode. I really like that about One UI. I wish that was the thing with iPad, more so than it actually is with iPad OS, because you can have that, fanned out view with multitasking. This is a full free window, and you can make a search in there, so I can go to I don't know, Amazon, and be scrolling through that page, you know, while looking at 2 apps simultaneously. I find that very, very useful. The last 2 things that I want to touch on are biometrics and camera. I didn't even know that this device had an in-display fingerprint sensor, just like the S10 and the Note 10 here. So as you can see, I can place my finger here and boom, it's unlocked. It's not the most accurate of all time, but it does work well enough, just like in its smartphone counterparts. And secondly, the camera setup here is actually pretty interesting. We have a regular wide-angle shooter and an ultra-wide shooter, which allows you to, of course, take pictures in tighter spaces. It's not the best camera, obviously. They're not investing like the Note 10's camera into this device. However, with the front and the back camera, it is definitely good enough for, you know, casual shooting, maybe taking a picture of papers and documents, you know, mundane things. Pretty much my stance on any tablet photography and videography. You shouldn't be shooting anything serious. I would recommend using a phone over a tablet any day, and then an actual camera over a phone. But yeah, the cameras are decent enough, especially with the back camera, and I do appreciate, once again, having the ultra wide there. It is a nice touch. So I don't want to say much else in light of my full review and other videos, you know, comparing this to, you know, the iPad Pro and, you know, testing it out in regard to note-taking and school tasks, etc. This is probably one of the best, if not the best, Android tablets on the market right now, spec-wise, build-wise, display-wise, experience-wise, but we've yet to see, once again, how it stacks up to iPad Pro. I will have a whole video on that, so stay tuned for that. And that about wraps things up here. I'd really appreciate it, once again, if you'd leave a like on this video, comment if you have any questions, suggestions, or opinions, and subscribe for more content like this. Expect more Tab S6 content coming very soon, especially a full review and a full comparison with its biggest competitor, the iPad Pro. And as always, I'm Noah, and I will catch you all in the next one.